Well, hi and good morning. I am Dr. Kohout-Tailor. I am the undergraduate experience librarian for Clemson Libraries, and thank you for joining us today for the Academic Success Center's Jumpstart workshop, conducting college-level research. As we wait for additional attendees to join us, I just want to discuss our norms. Please keep yourself muted during this session, and for any questions or concerns, please enter them into the chat. My co-host Nia will help you with those and we'll work to answer any questions today. You can follow along with this presentation at the following tiny URL. So it's just tinyurl.com/jumpstartfall2020, and then you can add this session to your Google Drive. And that URL will be at the end of the session, so don't worry if you can't get it before we begin. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Again, welcome to the session, Conducting College-Level Research. I'm Dr. Kohout-Tailor. My email is listed there. And again, the presentation URL, if you want to add it to your drive later, is tinyurl.com/jumpstartfall2020, and that will be at the end of the session. So the goals of today's session, so I am excited that you all are with us today. I've got these 3 goals here I'd love for us to accomplish by the end of this session. I would love for you to be able to identify some resources to help you with your research, including some specific databases and our new search interface called Find It at Clemson for Clemson Libraries. I'd love for you to be able to describe how to construct a search using keywords and parameters in order to find those resources related to your research. And lastly, I want you to be able to identify where to find up-to-date information regarding the fall semester. We know things are changing all the time, so I just want you to know where to go to get the latest information as we transition from online learning to in-person learning. So here's the agenda for today. This is what I'm really going to be discussing and going over. A lot of these things are related. I'm going to give a tour of the library's website because I'm going to showcase some things that are going to help you with your research. I am then going to move into Google Scholar and how Clemson Libraries and Google Scholar can work together. I'm then going to discuss our search tool, Find It at Clemson. We'll talk about databases, some research and course guides, and some citation management help. So I'm just going to go to our library's website to get us started at libraries.clemson.edu. This is our new web page here. It's new, and so there's a feedback form at the very top of the page. Feel free to give feedback. Within 10 seconds of any of the pages of our library's website, you're going to see this chat widget pop up on the bottom right-hand side of the page. So there is a librarian just waiting to help you. If you need help, have any questions, you can select chat now or select no thanks. If you decide you need some help, there is a speech bubble that will remain in the bottom right-hand corner that you can then open. And that will be present on each of the pages. So that last goal that I wanted us to accomplish today was just knowing what is going on with in-person learning and the libraries and how we're modifying things. So this big banner on the very center of the page is going to be where all of our updated information is. So please take a look at that as we get closer to in-person learning. If you have questions about, what's happening in the fall for both online learning and in-person learning, there's going to be information there. Please read about the fall reopening plan. And you can check out the library guide for online learning as well. And of course, if you have any questions, just use that chat widget and we'll be able to answer any questions. At the center of the page is where you can search for material. So if you're wanting items from the library, you can search everything. You can select articles, books, chapters, videos, images, or audio. And this is mainly you're searching for articles, books that we have, other items. It's really going to be everything that the library owns and subscribes to. You can go ahead and filter what you're looking for if you know you just want peer-reviewed articles, and those are articles that have been reviewed by others in the field. You can go ahead and check this box. If you know you only want items that are available online, you can select available online. This is a basic search here, so you can select advanced search and it will give you more lines and more options to search for search terms for your search query. Here's a shortcut to library databases, and if you know about a journal that you're interested in, you can select this as well. Now, if you have a question about finding something on the library's website, you can select that you want to search the library website. So if you're interested in borrowing privileges, or how many items you can check out, or if you have questions about technology, you can simply put in your search terms and it will only search the library website. Lastly is a filter to search Google Scholar. And so the good thing about this is this automatically makes sure that Google Scholar knows that you're recognized or it recognizes that you're affiliated with Clemson libraries. And so it's going to give you some access to materials that you might otherwise have to pay for. There are some Google Scholar tips here. You can select that link. On the far right-hand side are just some additional shortcuts of things that and resources that students often have questions about. So course reserves, those are items that your instructors have put on reserve for you, whether to read or view. So while we're in online learning, those are going to be, electronic materials. You can find information about technology checkout here. We're going to discuss research guides and how they can help you later on in this session. And if you have questions about study spaces or what we have, that will be there. Okay, on the very bottom of the page are any featured stories, library news and exhibits, and upcoming events. So you can see that this workshop is listed here, and you could just click on the link and see how to register or attend. All right, at the top of the page, we have a drop-down menus here, and I'm just going to highlight some things that we're going to talk about today and some notable resources that you need to be aware of. Under Find and Borrow, it's going to be some redundancy, right? So you want to be able to find the same thing in multiple ways with a website. So you're going to see some redundancy here. Under Find and Borrow, you can access finding books, articles, and more. Databases, journals, those course reserves, research and course guides that we'll talk about. You can find information about how to borrow technology. We actually have options of getting materials to you even if we don't own them. So that's a benefit for being a Clemson University student, that we can get items from other schools in South Carolina with Pascal Delivers, and things outside of South Carolina through interlibrary loans. So you can read about those services, but just be aware we can typically get you what you're needing. We also have a service that we've had for a long time, but for while we're in online learning, it may be helpful for you, called Scan and Deliver. And so you can click on this service here and read about it and how to use it. But basically it's where if you just need a book chapter, and this is like a print book, or if there's a print journal that you only need one article, you can request it. We'll scan it for you and email it to you. So you don't even have to go anywhere near the library, right? So you can read about that service under Scan and Deliver. Borrowing privileges, here are our unique collections, and any help with finding and borrowing materials. You can ask a librarian a question here, and there's a way to email, set up an appointment, things like that. Okay, under research and teaching, again, another link to research and course guides, which we'll go over. We're going to talk about citation management today. Here's a link to your subject librarian. So in each of your areas of study is a librarian who has some expertise in that field. And so if you have particular questions in your area of study, you can email someone that has that expertise. Here are links to workshops and tutorials. We have digital scholarship and publishing services. We also have the Clemson University Press as part of the libraries. And here's how to get help with anything with any needs with research and teaching. And again, that Ask a Librarian link is there as well. Okay, under Study and Create, we've got information about study spaces, creative spaces, our amenities and our partners listed here, and Ask a Librarian is there as well. You're seeing a pattern. And lastly, under About, we have the hours, floor maps to what's on each floor. We have employment opportunities under our organization. So if you're interested in working for us, you'll find information there. And just how to contact and ask a question. The last two things I want to highlight on this page are, the hours and where you can find the hours of operation. If you select the branch of the library here, you're going to see the hours. And of course, right now we're virtual services only, but this will change as we progress towards in-person learning. Over here is my library account. And so this is where you can find any information about what you've checked out, when it's due. If you have a fine, you can figure out how to pay for that there. And so that's listed there. And that's essentially the tour of the library's website. I am now going to focus on those research resources that I think will be helpful for you as you begin your research here at Clemson University. So I am going to start with Google Scholar because we're familiar with Google. Some of you are going to be familiar with Google Scholar. Even if you're not familiar, it's very user friendly because we're familiar with Google with just searching everyday things, right? If you use Bing, it's going to be really similar as well. Okay, so the benefit of using Google Scholar through the library's homepage is that it will recognize that you're affiliated with Clemson and therefore give you full text access to materials. So I'm going to put in my search query. And notice here, just with any sort of search engine, those quotation marks around my phrase are going to basically tell the search engine that I want those words kept together in my results. Now, Google's really smart. It often knows it wants those words together, but I'm showing you this now because these are skills that will translate into our Find It at Clemson search tool and databases. So we're going to go ahead and utilize this now. A capitalized and is sometimes helpful. What might be more helpful is a capitalized or. And basically when you capitalize those words, you're explicitly telling Google Scholar that you mean that you want those two phrases together. Like, so if I just want Black Lives Matter and student activism, I definitely want Google Scholar to bring me results with both of those phrases. If I have a capitalized OR, that is explicitly telling Google Scholar I want results having to do with Black Lives Matter or student activism. So you can imagine I'm going to get a whole bunch of results. But that's something to keep in mind as you use Google, and that is something we're going to use in those other search resources. Okay. So here is my results. It's really user-friendly. I can filter by publication date by selecting these timelines here on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, this is where I'm going to see those full text at Clemson links. And basically what this means is that Clemson has access to these articles. So I don't know if you've ever been in Google Scholar or even Google and you come across this like amazing article and it's super relevant, but when you click on the links, it eventually asks you to pay money, like $40 or so. That is what we call a paywall. And so basically, if you see full text at Clemson, you can bypass that paywall and get to those articles. Now, sometimes you're not going to have any problem accessing articles, right? So this may not be something that you need to use all the time, but in case you hit that paywall, and if you see that full text at Clemson link, that's what you're going to want to select. So I'm going to select full text at Clemson. And it's going to take me to, this is what I said earlier today, I really don't like this web page because it has very small font, and there's just a lot going on here. But I want you to zone in on this middle part here where it says content is available through these links. And I'm just going to select the word article. And now it's brought me to my article. Now, the first thing I could do is just kind of see the authors and their affiliation, because I am going to have to do a little bit of investigative work when I use Google Scholar, simply because Google Scholar says it pulls scholarly information, but it doesn't exactly tell us what that means. We also don't have a way for us to filter peer-reviewed sources. So just some quick investigative work is what you'll need to do when you're using Google Scholar. So I'm seeing here that this author, their affiliation, if I click on their name, it's going to take me to other works that they've written. I can see the journal. If I click on the journal, it's going to take me to other articles within that journal. I see keywords. Think of these as just related words to the article. So this can help me when thinking of additional search terms or just adding vocabulary that I need to know for my topic. I can read the abstract here first. I then see these subject terms, and these are, think of these as like the hashtags for this article. So I could actually click on these subject terms and it would take me to articles that have the same search terms, or subject terms rather. But again, how I think of these is really helpful is it provides those relevant terms, those relevant words I need to know when conducting a search, and just builds my vocabulary with a topic. So after I read the abstract, I can decide if I want to read the full article. It is located, look for something, all these pages are going to look differently depending on the publisher, but look for something like full text article or a PDF, and I see that on the left-hand side. I could then download it from here. Now, this particular journal is through a database company called EBSCOhost. So we're going to see this page again, and you're going to see this possibly, you might already be familiar with EBSCO databases, but this particular company that has databases actually has these tools on the right-hand side where you can export this article, add this article to your drive, print it, email it to you, you can cite it. With any sort of citation generator, just double check your manuals just for any sort of discrepancies. And so that's how I get to that article. Now, a little bit about Google Scholar. I could add this particular article to my favorites or my library by selecting the star. It will then go to my library, which is on the top right-hand side. You would have to remove it from your library. It will stay there until you actually remove it. The quotation mark provides a citation. Again, just double check it with your manuals. I can see how many times it's been cited, so that can help me evaluate if this is a credible work. I can look at related articles, which can help me find articles that could be related to my research needs. And so those are some key tools here. Now, I talked a little bit about having to do a little bit of investigative work. If they have an underline of their name, that means that they have a Google Scholar profile. So we were able to kind of see that because we had full text access, but just let's pretend like we didn't have full text access and we were just having to do some investigative work without going through Clemson libraries. We could see their affiliation, their areas of research. We could follow them. We could look at their related works that they've published, how many times they've been cited, co-authors, all sorts of good information. Lastly, we can look up information about the publication. So sometimes authors are not going to have a Google Scholar profile. Like the second author here, we don't know who that is. So we may have to actually just investigate the publication. This is in the Journal of Diversity in Higher Education. So instead of going to the, or instead of Googling Journal of Diversity in Higher Education and looking at the About Us on the journal's homepage, I'm actually Just going to search Wikipedia. And I'm going to see what Wikipedia says about it, because any website can put, you know, what they're about, but Wikipedia is good because it's kind of like a crowdsourcing of what are other people saying about this source. So it's just a great way to just double check your sources. So this is a peer-reviewed journal, so that's something that that may help me in my research if that's a requirement or something that I think is necessary, and I can read about it here. Okay, so that's pretty much what I wanted to show in Google Scholar. Again, that may be a refresher for some of you, or new for some of you, and that's okay because it's really user-friendly. So now I'm going to take my same search query, and I'm actually going to see what Clemson Libraries has access to and what it owns using the search tool called Find It at Clemson. So I'm just going to select library materials. I'm going to search everything, just see what's out there. I am doing a basic search. I could easily make this an advanced search here, but I'm just going to see what there is starting off. And this is the search tool, Find It at Clemson. And you're going to see in the middle of the page, or near the top, is a banner asking you to sign in. And you do want to sign in with your Clemson credentials, because this will give you more access to results. And it keeps your search, so you don't have to re-type in your search. Right now, I am looking at articles, books, any other items that Clemson owns or subscribes to. I could easily select that I only want to search for books and ebooks that Clemson owns. I could search for items only in course reserve. So again, those are the items that professors have put on reserve for their students to view or watch or read. And I could also search what other institutions in South Carolina have using Pascal Delivers. I mentioned this earlier, and I will show how to do this, but right now I'm going to start off just with a broader search with articles, books, and more. You can see that I have 377 results. On the left-hand side, I can actually filter my results to make it a little bit more relevant. So if I only want items available online and peer-reviewed, and I only want articles, I can select that. I can change my publication date and apply those filters. Okay. So we've now got it down to 81 results, which is a little bit more digestible when having to look through multiple pages. We could certainly make this even, we can narrow down our topic even more by maybe adding some additional search terms. This is where it is really important to have capitalized and, or, and not. So you want to make sure you're capitalizing items that you want to add with and, or not. Okay, so that's really important with this particular resource. Okay, so I'm going to select on this first article here to see if it's relevant for me. I'm going to scroll down under tools. I can see where I can grab a citation. Again, just double check it with your manuals for any discrepancies. I can grab a permanent link or a permalink if I want to get back to it later. I can email it to myself. I can export it to RefWorks, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And the first thing I'm going to do is just read the details, right? So I could click on other items that this author has written. Here are my hashtags, if you will. These are the subject terms. So I could click on these and it would take me to related articles that have these subject terms, or I can just kind of write these down, make note of them, that I need to add these to my search terms or to my work. I can read the description. If I find that this is going to be helpful, I can get to the full text by going to viewing it online. Now this is a different publisher, so like this one looked different. This is Taylor and Francis, and so just know that every one of these is going to look different because of different publishers. Use the table of contents to guide you in your reading. You can grab the citations here as well. And that is how you get to a full text article. I'm going to close this out. Now, the really neat thing about this is I've already added this to my favorites, but if I find that this is helpful and I just want to go back and look at this later, like Google Scholar, where you can add to your library using the star icon, if you select this pin, it adds it to your saved items, and then it will, your favorites, and this is where you can access all your favorites. Like Google Scholar, you would have to remove those for it to go away. Okay, so let's say we're interested in seeing what is available at Clemson, like what we physically own or ebooks. Oops, press search. And this may have kept my filters, but regardless, this may happen to you. So I do want to use this to show you. I have really used a very specific search query, right? So if I get 0 results, there's 2 things I could do easily. My first thought is to change these search terms to make it a little bit more broader instead of narrower. These quotation marks mean that I want all these words together. And so maybe I need to think about maybe not using quotation marks to say I want, you know, activism, but maybe it's student activism too, and that may broaden results. My other option is I can search outside of what Clemson owns. And a third option is that I'm just remembering now is I could do an advanced search and change up those search terms, and I'll show you that in just a minute. But let me see what other institutions in South Carolina own. So instead of searching at Clemson libraries, I'm going to go to Pascal Delivers. Here I see one item with multiple versions. It looks like a book that has multiple publication dates. I'm going to go to the 2018. And now I see that this is available from Francis Marion. I'm going to go to how to get it. I select Pascal Delivers. We are doing curbside pickup, so I can actually go and pick this book up at Cooper Library. All I have to do is just send a request. You'll get an email telling you next steps and directions. So that's an option. And because it's coming from somewhere in South Carolina, it's often a faster delivery than if we're going outside of South Carolina. So I'm going to close that. I'm going to show you an advanced search as well. So my third option was to just kind of change up my search query. So I can change the fields of what I'm looking for, what it contains, what material items, and I can keep adding additional lines. So I can add more search terms, and that may help me there. Okay. So we've talked about Google Scholar. We've talked about Find It at Clemson. Again, there's some really similar icons and search features. And so now I want to talk about databases. So you can actually, let's go back to the main page. You can actually just go and search for subject area databases if that's something that you think would be helpful. It's going to be available under the search box under library or selecting library databases, or under Find and Borrow. There's a link here as well. So as a Clemson student, you have access to over 640 databases. And databases are typically a subscription service that libraries subscribe to that gets you articles from journals, magazines, newspapers, all sorts of scholarly works. Could be popular works as well. So it just depends on the database. So you could filter by subject area. Okay. Our popular databases are here on the right-hand side. I'm going to go to Academic Search Complete, which is a really popular database because it's got all sorts of subject areas. It may ask you to sign in. It just wants to make sure that you're affiliated with Clemson. So just use your Clemson username and password. And so this may look familiar to some of you. It's provided by EBSCO, which is a big company that has lots of databases. You want to put in your search terms here. You're going to see those Boolean operators, which is and, or, and not. Notice they're all capitalized, so it kind of helps you remember to capitalize them in other areas. You can change what you're searching by using the drop-down box. You can change a lot of items for your search options. You can limit to full text, and that means you only want results that you have access to the full article. You can select if you want scholarly or peer-reviewed journals, the publication date, the publication type, the document type, all sorts of stuff. So I'm going to actually search using my query. Sometimes this messes up for me with the windows. Let me do student. Now I'm using a similar, now it's messing up. Okay, there we go. I'm using a similar query, but I do want you to notice, again, the quotation marks still are useful here. So databases, if you use quotation marks, it's going to keep those words together. Now the second line here, I'm using the Boolean operator and, because I want Black Lives Matter and student activism. And then I've put a capital OR, and then I've put my two search terms in parentheses, because that basically says, if you can't give me items with Black Lives Matter and student activism, I want Black Lives Matter or protest. So it's actually going to give me a lot more results. And so that's what we call nesting. And so it's actually just saying you want more than this search term. Okay, so I've got 457 results because I went pretty broad. I could limit, make those, narrow those results by using the limiters over here. I'm going to select full text. I also want only peer reviewed, because maybe that's something that my professor has required. I'm going to change the publication date. So now I've got 51 results, which is a little bit more manageable. To access the article, just select the title. I see the authors. I could click on their names and it would take me to other articles that they've written. I would actually recommend just throwing the name of this journal in Wikipedia just to see what it's about. Even though this is from a database, it's peer reviewed, we know it's credible, you know, just to kind of understand, well, what is this journal and who's the audience? That may be helpful. Here are my subject terms. Again, think of these as hashtags, or ways to search for relevant articles or additional vocabulary words. The full text of the article for this one is here. There's a table of contents that you could use. Now this is HTML full text, so the photos are actually not here. It's a little bit, it's just the text. It's a little bit more boring. So sometimes there'll be a PDF available instead of just a HTML full text, but for this one, we only have access to the HTML. Recall those tools that we've seen before, add it to your drive, cite, grab a permanent link. If I select that URL will be here. Okay, so Academic Search Complete is a general database. So let's say I'm just not finding relevant information using this general database. Maybe I just want to see what my other options are. I can go up here to choose databases. And here is a full listing of what EBSCO has available for their databases, which is a lot, right? You could go through here and read about the database and check the one you think would be helpful. Maybe when you're just starting out your research and you're just trying to understand like what's out there, you could select all and see what you have available. I expect we'll get a lot of results this way, which can be helpful at times and overwhelming at other times. So I've got 11,000 results. I would recommend adding more search terms, changing your databases. I can add additional lines here. Okay. Changing what you're searching and refining your results. Okay, so now let's talk about research and course guides. I've mentioned them a couple different times. They're under Find and Borrow and Research and Teaching, as well as the shortcut on the right-hand side of the page here. Under Find and Borrow, I'm just going to go to Research and Course Guides. And what these are curated guides that librarians have already done the work for you to find those relevant sources. So if you are needing kind of like a jumping off place for chemistry, let's say, I could go to Science, select Chemistry. Here is your librarian that can help you. She has provided key resources here for you. If you just need articles, you can select articles. She's pulled the databases for you and how to search for them and what they contain. If you need books or ebooks, she's pulled out some publishers for you. So that's a great way to start. Let me get back here. Ooh. Sorry about jumping around here. And those were research guides, so those are in subject area. Sometimes your courses will have guides. So if you're taking COM 1500 or 2500, I can go to this course guide. And it looks fairly similar. You know, your librarian that can help you is here. He's parsed out the relevant databases. He's giving you some search tips, how to cite with APA. He's got a whole list of resources here. So definitely check out research and course guides. Popular guides are here. Okay, so I just want to briefly touch on citation management. So under research and teaching, there is something called citation management. And just so you know, you as a Clemson student, even after you graduate, have access to RefWorks, which is a citation management software. It helps you with all of these things here. It basically stores your citations in one place. I wish I'd had this when I did my dissertation. That would have been helpful. And you can see how to use it using this guide here. Bobby is our expert with RefWorks, and he can help you with any questions. So I just want to let you know that we do have that available. Here's some other citation managers that are free up to a certain point. We recommend RefWorks just because you have like full access as a Clemson student. Okay, so those were the major resources. We've talked about using and actually it's the minus sign for Google search tips and tricks. Use quotation marks in Google. I've had students tell me that being able to search by file type is helpful. So if you just wanted PDFs, you could put in file type : PDF, and as you notice, there's no spaces there, and that will give you only PDFs. Now, you could do this with any sort of file type, so JPEG, anything like that. I just wanted to highlight searching for open media in Google Images. So I'm going to just conduct my same search. I'm going to select images. And why I'm showing you this is because, you know, at the college level, we need to make sure that we're using images and sound recordings and videos that we have permission to use. And so you'll often hear that called open media. And so using Google Images, we can actually go to Tools and select Usage Rights. And you can choose what you think is appropriate. I'm just going to say, for this example, I want things that are labeled for non-commercial reuse because I'm going to use it for something educational that I can actually change and modify. And here are the images here. Now, I always recommend just clicking on the image and kind of reading the fine print. Let me find this image here. And I see it's from Wikipedia, but notice the license type, it's in the public domain. If it's in the public domain, that means the public owns it. So that means I'm free to use it, which Google Images did that work for us, but I always like to double check. So let's go back, to here. We've talked about Boolean operators and, or, and not. We can use parentheses to nest query terms. And we can use quotation marks to search for phrases. Now, here are some advanced searching tips. I'm going to throw them out here. I don't know how helpful they'll be, but you can actually use a wildcard truncation, so you can search for word endings. So by using that asterisk, you can search for variations of word endings. The hash sign matches an optional character with multiple spellings. And the question mark matches exactly one character for unknown characters. So that might be helpful. I'm not sure. But I wanted to put it in there. And again, you can reference this slideshow after the fact if that is helpful for you. Oops, where is my... Okay, so just to sum up here, when evaluating information, read laterally. And what that means is go other places to see what other people are saying about a source or even a claim. So for the examples in this presentation, I went to Wikipedia. That's something to easily find out information about publications, organizations that we've never heard of, anything like that. Make sure that you trace your claims or sources to the original creators. So if you're reading an article in Google and it references a journal, go to the journal instead, right? So just go to the original source to make sure that the claims are what you're wanting, and go to that original source. When evaluating information, think about the purpose and the audience of the source. So different situations are different. Authority is contextual. By that, I mean in the traditional academic arena, you know, oftentimes you're asked to find those scholarly works, those peer-reviewed sources, those sources that are created by experts, but authority can look different in different situations. So just be aware of that. Lastly, just because a publication date is older doesn't necessarily mean it's irrelevant. So it just depends on the point you're trying to make and what evidence you're using and your task at hand. So you can ask for research help through email, chat, and you can request Zoom consultations using the Ask a Librarian, which was found under each help section of the library's drop-down menu. We have extended chat hours for the fall, so it will be 9 to 9 Monday through Thursday, 9 to 5 on Friday, and 1 to 5 Saturday and Sunday. Here is my contact information with the session presentation URL at tinyurl.com/jumpstartfall2020. If you have any questions, I know we've got 2 minutes left. You can certainly email me, but if you have questions, put them in the chat. You know, I know you have to run to other things, so you know we are finished at this point if our time runs over a little bit, but I'm happy to answer questions right now.